Hello everyone, Nadeem here with PC.Solutions.Net. Today I wanted to address something really quick. I get asked this question: why should a user, whether for home use or office use, go with Microsoft hardware, specifically Microsoft Surface devices? So there's a few reasons for that, but I think the most compelling reason is historically, driver updates, firmware updates, this is the software that goes on the chips on the machines. It's been very fragmented. You buy a machine, and then on average, if we look at it, most users never update firmware on their devices because there's no easy way to do it. With Microsoft Surface, all that changed. So Microsoft integrated everything into Windows updates. So your firmware update for your BIOS, your controllers, even your hard drives, everything comes through Windows Update. So all you have to do is enable Windows Update. The machine will get the updates on schedule, and you don't have to worry about manually trying to hunt down the firmware from different vendors, Dell, HP, whatever. That's been a problem from the beginning, and I know a lot of third-party vendors have tried to come up with their own update utilities to update some of these firmwares, but they've always been problematic. It's always a nerve-wracking process when you run a third-party utility to update firmware, and then something happens, or it doesn't update, or it simply crashes during update, and then now you're stuck with a machine that you can't really use. It makes life a lot easier to not have to worry about those things. And I've been testing Microsoft Surface for a while now, I think back from the laptop 3 days, and Surface Pros and all that. I have never had a single firmware update fail. And whenever a new update is released, it gets pushed through via Windows updates. Everything is seamless. So even as a tech person, it's an easy process that anybody can do and stay up to date with the firmwares. Now, why would you want to update the firmware? So sometimes the firmware updates will give you new features, but most times they will improve stability and performance. This is just the software that's burnt onto the chips. And I'm not going to get too technical, but it basically instructs the chips how to communicate, and over time, the developers will tweak this software to make it more efficient. So always a good idea to keep those up to date. And of course, they fix vulnerabilities as well. So that's one of the other reasons why it's a lot of people are switching to Microsoft Surface devices. I think it makes it a lot better and easier for consumers to where they don't have to try to hunt down and manually update all these firmwares, which historically has been a problem. I mean, even for us. So as an MSP, we do update servers and their firmwares, but for a lot of the workstations, a lot of times companies will not want us to update the workstation firmware because a lot of times it can fail. And when it fails, now you have a boat anchor that you really can't do much with. And in the morning, a user's coming into work and they can't work. For servers, we have to update these firmwares. And on the server side, the stability is much better. I mean, we can get like Dell, HP, Lenovo, we can get the firmware directly from the manufacturers. And these manufacturers know that servers are critical because they serve multiple users. And you can't have a firmware fail, because if that happens, things are going to be bad, right? Nobody's going to buy your product anymore. That's one of the other reasons. And if you haven't tried a Surface product, you can go to Microsoft Store. I think some of the stores are still open, but you can go to a Microsoft Store, try them out, check them out. Now, one more thing about Surface, since we're talking about Surface, is if you buy a Microsoft Surface device with Windows Pro already on it, that is a slightly tweaked hardware, like the speed and the different stepping So the CPUs, they step at different speed levels. Those steppings are different for Windows Pro. So it's a very tightly integrated product with the operating system. So if you want to get a machine with peak performance, go with something that comes with Windows Pro, because if you look at the detailed specs, you will notice that the speeds are actually better for machines that come with Windows Pro as opposed to Windows Home. I know some companies out there will buy Windows Home Edition and then upgrade later while they're getting those reduced speed machines with Windows Home, and then they're upgrading it to Windows Pro, paying that difference in the price, but not realizing that the hardware is slightly different. It's running at different speeds. So until next time, everybody, have a great day, and hope it was helpful. And I've historically been a Mac person, and but I always try to test different hardware and see how things are. Now there are issues with any hardware, right? So with the Microsoft Surface laptops, we've seen across multiple customers, they seem to have considerable time drift. It didn't used to be the case, but it is. So normally what we do is we set it up to do a sync of the time clock with the atomic clock. Everybody has internet, right? So it's not an issue, but that's something to keep in mind is if you do get a Microsoft Surface device, and if you see that the time is usually off a little bit, it's a known issue. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next time.